Hello, everyone, and welcome to Making Vinyl Online. I'm Brian Sturges, the co-founder of Making Vinyl and the president of Colonial Purchasing. Our first guest today is funk music artist Cliff Beach.
Hello and welcome.
Hey,
Nice to
hey,
see
good,
you again, Brian.
good to see you too. So, where are you today?
I am in my home in West Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you look very relaxed. Looks like everything's okay for right now.
Yeah, I think that's just the laid back California atmosphere.
Well, we really appreciate you helping us kick off this Making Vinyl series. As I mentioned to you, you're the first one, and you're kind of our guinea pig in all of this. So we appreciate your patience. We appreciate you joining us. And as we get better at this, we'll bring you back again so we could show you how much better we got over the period of time.
Awesome. Sounds good. I look forward to it.
But I know that you're a big vinyl enthusiast and you've produced a lot of albums, as I said. And I know you want to kind of share your journey as where things started and where you are today. So I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of go through your presentation, and then we'll open it up with time allowing to some questions and answers at the end.
Wonderful. Sounds good. Everyone, my name is Cliff Beach. I am a funk artist and LA resident, based in Culver City, California, near the Sony Studios. Um, I have been making music for over 18 years, so I'll give you a little bit about my background. My background and origin start in Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., I was um, born into a musical family. My family, actually, extended family, is part of a church that doesn't believe in musical instruments. And so growing up, they are able to sing in this very, very tight knit 6-part harmony that we learn basically from birth. And so I grew up in the gospel tradition, being able to have that in DC growing up. And you'll see that a lot of the thematic themes with my albums based on that. But through school, I took piano lessons from the age of 5 all the way through high school. I was able to also join various choirs within school and eventually get into all state choirs and really kind of build my craft. But I really started to grow as a musician when I was moved to Berklee College of Music in Boston. So that's really where I started to learn about other styles besides gospel. I like jazz, R&B, neo soul, soul, and funk music, which became really the underpinning of all of the musical work that I do. And so it was a very exciting time. At Berklee, we were very fortunate to have a listening media center library that had vinyl discs, that had CDs. This was in a time in the late 1990s, early 2000s, where Napster was coming up and digital was just becoming a thing, and the record industry was changing. And so we were able to be at the precipice of that change, but at the same time understanding the history. And what Berklee really taught me as a musician is really to be able to go back to your influences and then their influences and then their influences to eventually be able to understand kind of the history of where music comes from, even going back to classical music and beyond, because I really think it's very important to understand where you come from and then be able to see that evolution over time. And so then once I left Berklee, I was way too cold of being in Boston after 3 years. I decided to move out to Los Angeles, where I've been now again for 18 years. And so very fortunate to be in a thriving city, that has great weather and great history of music, lots of the music industry being here with the record labels and obviously Hollywood and the film scoring and music scene. And so with that, 2003, I moved out to LA. I was able to start my journey. As many musicians, I went and auditioned for American Idol, waited 3 days in the elements at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, sleeping outside to be able to get that chance. Did not, unfortunately, get the golden ticket to Hollywood. And so I was so upset by that I decided, you make your own opportunities, you make your own path. And I decided to start my own band immediately. So in 2003, I started my first band, the Moon Crickets. The Moon Crickets lasted between 2003 and 2007. We were very fortunate to have our old landlord become an investor in our project. He actually put the seed money down for us to record our first LP, the Moon Crickets LP, that came out in 2006. And then we released that live at Universal City Walk in near Hollywood. And so that outdoor concert was recorded live, and that became our subsequent second album in 2007, which is Live from City Walk. And so with that, I was just kind of learning. Originally, when I started out in music, I just wanted to be an excellent singer. I never thought that I was going to, 18 years later, be a record label owner or a producer or an arranger or anything like that. I really just wanted to be good at singing. But through necessity and through evolution, obviously, you learn more, you grow more, you do more. And so through the Moon Crickets, it really was a breeding ground for me to kind of learn, how do I work with a group? How do I become a band leader? How do I write songs? And I started writing my own material and wrote, pretty much 100% of the material for that group. And then once it disbanded, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. So in 2007, I had a few different jobs, day gigs just to make ends meet. And then I worked on Holland America Cruise Lines doing music. And then after a year of that, I was sick of, playing Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville. And so I left the cruise ships and decided to go back and get my MBA from 2008 to 2010. And I wasn't doing much music then, but I knew I was still studying the music industry. What I learned at Berklee and what I learned through having my first band is that whether they tell you or not, you are a business. So as a musician, you're in the gig economy. You are a solopreneur. You are an entrepreneur. Whether you decide that or not, you still have to know about copyright. You have to know about licensing. You have to know about digital strategy, putting out your records if you're doing it independently, marketing strategy, all of these things, PR, radio promotion. These are things that you would have to learn on your own over time. And luckily, we live in a digital age where this information is at our fingertips and we can get that. But I had to start having the growing pains of learning through that process. So in 2010, I started now feeling I could do it under my own name. So I started working under Cliff Beach. And so since then, the last decade, I've been working under Cliff Beach, releasing material. So by 2013, after a few years of playing my new music around with my new band, I wanted to be able to release something. And so I started working with Tim Hall, 1192 Studios in Westlake Village. I knew him through working at another music store with a few other Berklee alumni. And so with that, I was able to slowly learn the process of producing for the first time for myself. And so with that, we worked on this artist journey. I was working with 5A label in downtown as a songwriter and a staff member, and they helped me mix and master that recording. And Mr. Rocks, who owns the studio, really good friend of mine, I worked with him in his hip-hop group, Homestyle, back in the day. He was asking, you're a great musician, you're a great singer, but what are you as an artist? Like, who are you? And so that's why I named my album Who the Funk is Cliff Beach. And when you look at that record cover, you'll see that I'm holding a Photoshop version of Herbie Hancock Rocket single in my hand that says Who the Funk is Cliff Beach. And with that, you see the evolution that I wanted to get into vinyl. I didn't necessarily have the capital, working capital, to be able to create that at the time, but I knew that vision-wise, I was moving towards that. And so when I get to my second album in 2014, Stripped Down and Unplugged, we had some issues with the drums being in low ceilings on the album, so we did it on a cajon, the stripped down version. And we learned that on that DIY release that I did, I made about 50 copies for that release party. We did it on a vinyl CD. So again, I was continuing this theme of vinyl, knowing that eventually I was going to create a vinyl for myself. And so being able to now come full circle, after 2014 releasing that second album, I started working on a 2-year project to do my opus, which is this vinyl and our flagship, The Gospel According to Cliff Beach. And so the Gospel According to Cliff Beach album was made in a way to be a concept album. So when you look at the artwork for it, this is the CD. You look at the artwork, you'll see that this is supposed to be me as a stained glass window. And so this was created by Luis Nariño, who is my guitar player, and his company, Image Stricken. And so we went back to my roots in Washington, D.C. area, in Baltimore, actually. Sean Bill Rosano, bass player, and this drummer, Spida, who I met, gospel drummer, a lot of crazy ghost notes. We were able to create all of the basics in a church so that we would have the acoustics that we wanted for the drums to fix the problems that we had with the Who the Funk album. And so we recorded all of those live with me doing scratch tracks in another part of the church together. And it was a beast of a juggernaut of a project to be able to do. This album ended up having over 30 personnel on it, my biggest, largest record to date. And so I knew that that was going to be the one that I was going to make my vinyl stamp. And I had the vinyl created by Disc Maker. So again, as we talk about the concept, you look at the back of this, you'll see that we have this kind of 10 Commandments look. And then for the CD, not the vinyl, but in the CD, you have a different experience where you have this very like Gutenberg press Bible for the thank yous and the credits. And so all of that was well thought out. But as you start to have these projects of your own as an artist and eventually creating a label, you learn that there's so many project management skills of just getting something started, creating all these baby steps to be able to eventually have this product in your hand. I was told that the way that the music industry works is that you're basically taking an idea from your mind, you're pulling it out, and then putting it in front of your face. That is what making a vinyl is. That is taking what's intangible and making it tangible, and then having like this kinetic energy of a needle dropping in these grooves as it spins, playing this great music out to you. And as you listen to the vinyl experience versus the digital experience, you'll have totally two different experiences. And what I like about having a concept album on vinyl is that you'll encourage the listener to listen to it fully through rather than having a singles market. But with that, because a lot of people live on YouTube, a lot of people live on Spotify, you have to learn a digital strategy that combines and supports having a vinyl disc. And so with that, for this vinyl record, we were able to have 3 singles that came from that. Right Side of the Tracks, we did a really cool YouTube video in Brooklyn, New York. We hired a Bollywood actress and we did this like Charlie Chaplin, a Buster Keaton silent movie film, and that was done by my friend who's an Emmy Award-winning cameraman, Travis Tips. His brother Keaton Tips also worked on it, so shout out to them. It really takes teamwork to make the dream work, so we did that. And then luckily our subsequent 2 singles after that, Delilah, we shot a video at the legendary Harvell's in Santa Monica, where I've had a residency the last 3 years. And we hired this burlesque dancer, Dolly Nikki from Lolita's Burlesque, to be able to shoot this really classic, nostalgia, smoky video that was done by Brian Sturges, who I later signed to my label for his soundtrack, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And so with that, we were able to then win Best Music Video for the Divulge Dancers Film Festival 2 years ago, but also that helped us to get some Spotify plays. So we were added into 2 Spotify playlists for the gospel album, one being the Fresh Gospel playlist, the other being the New Music Christian Friday playlist. And we only had a few thousand streams for each of the singles based on that, but it allowed us to start to kick into this Spotify algorithm so that we were a blip on the radar. They knew that we existed. And that was right around the time in 2018 when they were rolling out the artist platform. So again, as an artist, as a label, as a content creator, when you are creating these things and working with Spotify, working with your digital distribution, we go through CD Baby, you need to give enough time horizon, 3 to 4 weeks, for it to go to the editorial team and have a chance of being able to get on these playlists. Because these playlists are very important. People are going to YouTube, number 2 only to Google, which owns both, to be able to search for music. And then obviously Spotify being one of the leaders, if not the leader, of the online music platforms. And so, where you're showing up, you kind of have to be everywhere, hit people where they live. So we're in all the platforms, Apple Music, et cetera. But with Spotify in particular, because it's free as an independent person, as a person that may not have a lot of funds to promote your records, this is giving you an opportunity to be able to get onto bigger playlists by just, again, having those listens and spins as you try to do other promotions with radio, etc. We use radio promotion through the same people that work for Daptone Records. So the people that were pushing, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings and Charles Bradley push our stuff. And so we wanted to eventually make these connections to be able to network and to get our music out there. Again, we wanted people to experience on the vinyl, but not everybody has a vinyl player. So again, we had a really good digital strategy as far as getting initially on Spotify. And so with that, as we move into new products, we see that, Brian Sturges, who works for us, we were able to then add him in to do his soundtrack, which came out. I had 2 songs on this soundtrack, and so that was great. His movie's on Amazon. We then moved into working with a group, Mestizo Beat. Their vinyl is actually coming back literally today from Gotta Groove Records. And so with that, we're able to have a new vinyl with them. We released Confident. Last year has been out a year. We did that just as a digital single to leak that first. Now it's had over 300,000 streams thanks to the All Funked Up and Funk Drive playlist. And so now with that, we come full circle with F-Spot Records, home of the White Blinds, David Cilia, doing a collaboration with California Soul Music to be able to push out that content on a vinyl 45 that's also coming back this week from Gotta Groove. So just very excited about the vinyl resurgence, knowing that vinyl has now surpassed CD sales. But I think ultimately it's not an if or then, it's really a both. You want to be able to create great vinyls that live in that medium and nostalgic and great sounding records, but at the same time, making sure that you have a proper digital strategy to be able to reach a wider mass audience.
Yeah. And so, Cliff, let me ask you a question here. When you're talking about doing vinyl and CD, what is your production mix between the two? What's a typical run as far as CD, and what are you looking at as far as vinyl?
Sure. So with the new Mestizo record, we dropped the digital single on 5/15, Osvaldo's Rebellion. We'll be dropping another one in July before releasing digital and the vinyl in August. For the vinyl run, we have physical distribution through Fat Beats, which is based in California, but they have a network of distributors nationwide to get the actual physical product up now that we're actually reopening stores. So for our first initial run for that one, we've done 400, 300 in the standard black vinyl, the 150, and then 100 in limited edition transparent sunburst vinyl. So very excited about that. And then for the F-Spot, we've done about 400 as well, but all 45s in the transparent vinyl. We just think that it looks cooler that way.
Yeah, no, definitely. And is that something that you've learned from your fan base as far as what they're looking for? It's, how easy is it to convert your fan base to, we'll say, continue to support you with physical media?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it from Seth Godin saying you want to build tribes, you want to have content and media coming out that you have a fan base that basically would spend about $50 on you. And so you try to create these limited editions and experiences where they're getting something that they really can't get anywhere else. And I learned that originally I interned for Hidden Beach Recordings in Santa Monica. That was the home of Jill Scott and that record label. And so I interned there twice, in 2003 and 2009. And they did a lot of really cool limited edition colored vinyl that did really well. And then Mestizo Beat had already worked for 2 other record labels before me doing 45s. And they had good success with Coal Mine and Common Good. So I was able to kind of use data points of what they had done in the past to kind of see what these new vinyl would do as we were creating how many units we would do. And then getting also pre-orders from our distribution at Fat Beats.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're very involved in the manufacturing process. You're using a lot of the companies that come to making vinyl, people that we've worked with, like disc makers, Gotta Grooves. Is it that, we'll say, you like to be involved in every step, or do you like, we'll say, giving it to people that you worked with before and you said, well, you already kind of know what I want, this is what I'm going to be expecting from you? how often are you contacting, we'll say, the folks at Gotta Grooves or disc makers to say, how's my order doing? Do you need anything else? Or is it that they're waiting to come back to you, or you're waiting for them to come back to you?
No, no, no. As an artist and as a label owner, you have to be proactive. But they're, with Gotta Groove on these last couple of records, they are very, very good at responding and getting back to you, especially during the coronavirus. We had the test pressing, but the plants were down for a few weeks. And so just kind of figuring out that. And they actually did, in record time, no pun intended, get it back to us. And so, yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, I also got mastering done at the bakery that's on the Sony lot in Culver City, and they actually make plates and stuff themselves. And what's cool about that is that they have kind of like this Frankenstein machine to do the plates. They have parts from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and there's only a few of these kind of working machines left in plants that can do that. So, yeah, I think as I got deeper into it, I just got more involved in the process, not just to nerd out on it, but really understanding like, all the inputs that you put into it just make that product better. And so as much as you can be involved, and, we went to the mastering sessions, we videotaped stuff, we posted on social media. It just kind of adds an excitement, another layer to it than just sending it off and then getting the final result. I really kind of like to be as hands-on as possible.
Yeah, yeah. And how is it, we'll say, COVID to change your business model as well? I guess you're not on tour, right? So how are you managing through that right now?
That's correct, yeah. And so what we did is we pushed back some of the timelines for the vinyls to come out to give time for the plants to reopen, to get the product back, to get that out to physical distribution, and hopefully now some of the stores are opening up. So I think that was a good strategy. I think, with digital or any type of content, every type of content that you release allows, from a PR perspective, some type of impact date. And so if we release a digital single, we can have an exclusive for that. If we release a video, then we can have an exclusive for that. And then when we release, a 45, we can do that. When we release the full album, then we can do that. So it's creating more points. And then every time we do that release on Spotify, it gives us another opportunity to be able to push that to the curators for their editorial team. So really, again, I think it's more about the strategy. As I was starting as an early artist, it's kind of like a cart before the horse. You're always kind of like, okay, we recorded this, let's put it out. But now it's like the larger labels, and they found success. And, you may finish a record a year before it actually comes out, because there's such a machine and system in place of actually how you plan your digital strategy from a marketing and PR perspective.
Right, right. Well, that's something hopefully that we can talk about in other editions of the Making Vinyl Online. I do know that you're super busy, and we're kind of coming to the end of our time, but I did want to ask you, I saw that you're also a founding member of the Creative Opportunity. Can you just kind of explain a little bit of what that is and how that might be something that people might want to look into?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's always about your network, and you're stronger together. I believe there's an African proverb that says, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, then go together. And so basically creating the opportunity, again, just out of necessity, was created as an artist collective. We wanted to be able to book shows together, to have a cross-pollination of our fan bases, and not have there's a few people that would like this, but essentially, I'm a funk artist, and then we'll have some other organic type artists. But I would play shows at certain clubs where the bookers didn't really care who they booked. And so you'd have a funk act, you'd have like a death metal act, and then something else. And then it was just kind of, you would alienate fans by having like a totally 180 shift in the musical style. And so creating the opportunity was basically gathering the artists to be able to have enough buying power to basically become our own bookers and book our own situations directly with the venues versus going through middlemen. So I encourage all artists to kind of band together to kind of make the best situations possible for yourselves and for others.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, we're going to kind of leave it on that note. Cliff, how do people reach you? Where can we find you?
You can find me on all social media at Cliff Beach Music, or the record label at California Soul Music. That's usually the best way to get a hold of us. Of course, CaliforniaSoulMusic.com as well.
All right, perfect. Well, hey, hang tight there. Keep on doing what you're doing, and we really appreciate you helping kicking this off for us. We had a couple of technical issues in the beginning, but hopefully, I think it actually worked out really well by you just kind of talking through it that way. I liked it. So
Yeah, I
something
think
that
it's
we
more
learn all the
organic, more
time.
natural.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. All right, my friend. Thanks again, and all of the best. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. We'll talk soon. Bye bye.
Okay, bye-bye now.